Welcome, friends. Welcome to My Friend's Basement Studio Apartment Podcast.
House Apartment Podcast.
House Apartment Podcast. I'm Maxim.
I'm Connor.
And we're the owners and creators of My Friend's Basement Studio and the My Friend's Basement Studio Abode Podcast. Welcome to the show, guys. To be frank with you, last week we said we were going to talk about something this week.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, oh, next week we'll talk about this. And we both forgot what that was. And we just spent probably 30 minutes re-listening to the last episode to find it out. So
it was the best 30 minutes of my day.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you. That was great content.
Great content.
If you're starting on episode 3, you are sorely missing out. Listen to a half. Okay, this is what you need to do. You listen to half of it on double speed, the second half. You don't hear it. So then you start again.
We probably spent more time trying to find that than we would have if we just listened to the whole episode end to end.
Yeah, it was probably pretty close. But I think that's another point. If you're just looking for tips, because you all are coming here for the tips from us, is timestamp stuff. Make notes. Because if you're using a lot of our clients use this to cut clips.
Yep.
Sometimes we're back there, but it is a lot of work if we don't know that they want us to do it, to have to go and scroll through and find something.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you come into a studio, you have some there, you go, hey, can you just like write down things that you really laughed at, you found really interesting, and a little time, you go, oh yeah, sure. It's a great habit to pick up when you podcast.
Yeah, I definitely need to start doing that for my own shows too, because I feel like that clip hunting through 90 minutes is like
we should
rough.
do is just peak the audio real loud.
Every time we say something funny, we'll scream right afterwards so we can find it.
But the issue is once we clean the audio, it's all gone. It all looks the same. There's so many nuances.
So you said we'll have a new segment up top this week. Is that going to be your lessons learned for the week?
No, I knew that. Lessons relearned. It'll be another segment.
Mm-hmm.
So we're introducing a new segment. So we end the show with highlights from the week from the studio. And then we start the episode with things we learned the last week. What have we learned that is either revisions and or new things that should help us become better podcasters.
Yeah. What'd you learn this week?
I learned that Anchor FM, not as good as I thought.
Oh, I wouldn't say not as good. But
significantly worse than I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say this. I vouched for Anchor last episode. I still think Anchor's a really great service. However, S&D, David Dobbins of S&D lives in the apartment with me, and we're helping each other. We're with podcasts and stuff, and we even said in the last episode, you upload to Anchor, they distribute everywhere for you.
Yeah, because that was the case when we launched Small Town Radio and Don't Quit Your Day Job.
So it was. That's just all I knew about Anchor, and I haven't launched something in a while because I'm just not like launching podcasts all the time.
Me, big launcher,
which it's going to be a thing. But Anchor no longer has that feature.
Right.
And so I got in touch with a customer service person because different articles said different things. Like old articles are still up where it's like, we do this for you. And then new ones are like, we don't. And I'm like, I don't know. It's true. And the customer service person, I always feel bad like leaning into a customer service person, but it was like, we don't do that anymore. You can post about it on this forum where people can upvote it, and like our engineers will see it. I'm like, I just literally put in the comment, like, if it doesn't seem like it's in Spotify's best interest to help you distribute onto other platforms if they can just have them all on their own.
Right.
If I put this out there, will it actually be listened to? And they're like, yeah, they did this because Spotify bought it. I'm like, okay, well, they're probably not going to bring that back.
Right. So basically it was before you make an account, you upload your episode, and then Anchor would connect to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Overcast.
Everything for you.
All that for you. They have since taken that away. I also had to learn that last week the hard way, where I had to manually go in and make all those accounts. It can take like an hour. It's not
just like fresh. None of it's straightforward. Really,
it's really kind of annoying because the best one in my opinion is Google Podcasts, because all you do is you open the page, you paste your RSS URL, and it sends an email to the email in the RSS to verify that it's yours, and then you're good. And there's an approval process.
Amazon's
similar, but Apple, dude, Apple, I will give props. Once I figured out how to do it, my podcast got on there very quickly, but it was figuring out how to do it that was a pain in the ass.
It's an interesting play by Apple to be like, yeah, we no longer run iTunes, but you still need to upload. You need to verify your account on iTunes.
You literally have to, you make an Apple ID, and before you can upload a podcast on Apple ID, you have to download either iTunes or Apple Music or something, like another app, log into that app with your new ID so you can accept the terms and conditions that they don't give you right away, and then you can use the Apple Podcast Connect. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so that was a big pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And it was just like, why would you get rid of a good feature? It's like, I guess if you're like, I still think they're probably, I haven't explored enough RSS distributors or hosters, but like if you're still getting like a decent market share and it didn't impact you, I get it from a business point, but it's also like, don't get rid of good features.
Yeah.
To like, don't undermine.
Just that alone makes me be like, if there are other podcasting, like hosting services that are like cheap and monthly, but they distribute for you. If you're a beginner podcast, I would just do that. Because like Anchor, it made sense. Annoying. It made sense before where it's like, oh, you don't have to know anything. You just have to make the Anchor account and it'll put it out there for you. But now it's like, oh, now you have to figure out extra steps and then you're becoming bogged down in technical detail.
It's also like a multi-day process because it takes a couple hours to do that, but then you need to check to make sure it all went through. So I relearned that. I'm just trying to think because we both listened to a podcast this week. Too, about marketing and stuff like that. But
my lessons learned though. My lessons learned is if you're going to promote your show in an online community, make sure that your account has enough Reddit karma. No, I'd say one of the things I learned this week was definitely along those lines, but my Gundam podcast launched, right? Episode 0 came out. Episode 1, we launched it like 5 days later, whatever. Posted in the Gundam subreddit, the post got taken down because my account was brand new. So I was like, oh shoot. So I literally had to spend like a day like commenting on everything to build up my Reddit karma to prove essentially that I'm not like a spam bot. And I'd say along those lines for like that type of marketing, whatever community you're marketing in and you're joining, just make sure it's not against the rules to promote yourself.
I would take it one step further though, because this podcast we listened to, he said his mentor said, you know, imagine there's a party every day where the people that are your target audience spend their time at. You need to show up to the party, but 2, you also need to, like, if you're actually going to a party, you don't go in and go, hey, listen to my show. Hey, listen to my show.
Right.
You want to be the life of the party. You want to be a contributor. You want people to like you first and foremost. And it's, I guess, the karma thing's a perfect example. Like, you build up enough good karma, and people are like, yeah, I want to support you because you're the life of the party where I party.
Exactly. It's literally like, it's that thing they called it a watering hole, which was brilliant because I like it. It's just like, yeah, if you want to find an audience, go to that online community where your audience is. Like, because the more niche your show is, the more likely there is for a community of your listeners already. Just go in there and interact. And that's what I've been doing. I've just been going through everyone's Gundam models and commenting, hey, you did a great job. This looks really nice. Because then when they see the Reddit account, they're like, oh, this is this guy whose name is interesting. I might click on that. Oh, he's got a podcast. That's what this account is. Maybe that happens. But building that credibility, reputation. So that was my lessons learned.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing for all social medias though too. Reddit, like Instagram, I try and just like comment. I really just want to get our Instagram for the show, or the feed, just to be podcast clips. Yeah, because that'd be sick.
That'd be great.
That'd be so easy. And we're like, hey, you like notice things. We're like, that's either really cool or we can help you.
Yeah,
but we want some stuff.
And now we can get into the lesson we both learned right before this. So 1, take timestamps of interesting things.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. 2, this week we're going to talk about maintaining a podcast.
Yeah, the work. So we talked last week, you've launched a podcast and you're super stoked. And then you're not because you're like 4 people listened.
Yeah, that's the game, baby.
It really is. Or like you could get like episode 1, get close to 100 listens, let's just say. But then by episode 4, you're boiled it down to the people that didn't just click to be supportive. You actually have your target audience. Which is, again, like, if you're honest with yourself, you're managing the expectations up top. That is, you might be one step ahead to be like, I know this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Not all my friends love the same show I watch.
Right.
Like they'll be a friend, but my friends aren't going to stay with me all the time when they want to do things they don't like.
Yeah, exactly. I remember one time I met a LA comedian who had a big podcast like years ago. And I was like, I recognized him. He was going to a comedy show that I was going to before I started comedy. And he walked in and I said the name of his podcast. I was like, oh, hey. And he was like, oh, hey, how's it going? I was like, I really love your podcast. Really funny. And at some point in our conversation, he goes, yeah, none of my LA friends listen to my podcast. And in my mind, I'm like, that's crazy. This guy and his co-host are so funny. They make this great podcast. But it's true. You, especially as comedians, like we can't have our audience just be our friends, you know, because those people are not. Some of them are loyal audience members. A lot of them are just not. They're like, people will tune in to listen to a friend that's on the show, or they'll listen to your first episode to be supportive. But there is a growing pains period with every show where it's like you launch, you have the hype audience, and then after a while, you kind of organically generate this more weekly listenership. And like for Don't Quit Your Day Job, it took me a while, but after like, you know, maybe 4 or 5 months, I was like, I can firmly say that I have 20 people who are listening every week that are like out, that are not like brought in by my guests. This is just people who always listen to them, you know?
And so in those 4 to 5 months, what did the upkeep of your podcast look like?
Mine's pretty simple. I think with kind of hand in hand with the managing expectations, having done small town radio in the past, was like, what is the weekly effort I want to assign to this podcast, right? I didn't do a research show, so I'm not researching ahead of time. I don't want to do that anymore, really. And then I was like, I need to have a guest, so I do that 90-minute interview. Okay, so launch day comes, so I'm going to make a post on Instagram, tag them, all that, when the episode launches. They'll share it, hopefully bring some people in. And at some point during that next week, before the next episode launches, I'm going to make one clip or audiogram from that to remind people to come back and watch it again. And that part is like, mine was low maintenance. Like now I know, like, okay, I found something I can do weekly for forever. But now I need to start stepping up the weekly content I produce from those episodes. So like now my maintenance is like increasing, where it's like, okay, now I'm going to go back and like remake all those clips to be like in YouTube short / TikTok / Instagram reel format instead of horizontal video, like just straighten them out, you know?
Yeah.
And then just start re-releasing those and putting them back out so I can, because we're kind of I think we're in a time where things are changing with what you are expected to do to market a podcast. And the truth is like every time I see podcasts on TikTok where I'm like, ugh, who would watch this? Like, this is a terrible clip. That's just a clip that it could have been your podcast there in a place of their clip. You know, it could have been a better one. Like, I don't know. I always struggle with like promoting the stuff I make. But now I'm like, okay, I have to do this. Like, I can't do the laid back marketing, like post day of, posting before the next like episode comes out. It's like, I need to be more active in promoting this.
So if we're breaking down, diagnosing the time commitment, the initial time commitment, yeah, you got to do the podcast.
Right.
But you also started your podcast, as a lot of people do, in your home.
Yep.
And so you're looking at an hour and a half, then you're probably looking at 30 to 45 minutes of like rearranging the house and like making sure like your room is clean and all of that. And then the hangout time afterwards, which for some people maybe works.
Yeah.
Some people it's not work. And then you are editing the podcast, which we figured out we have a way to edit it pretty quickly, but still that, let's say you use our process, still 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, so now you're looking at 3 hours. 3 hours minimum. You have to rearrange your room, 3.5, 4 hours a week. And say you're a stand-up comedian, which is a lot of what our audience is. You go, okay, well now I need to, I'm probably working a job. I am going to perform regularly. I am writing. Maybe I'm probably taking care of my mental health. If you're not, you should take care of your mental health. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, do I have 4 weeks to carve out just to record it?
Right.
And that is a question where it's like, that's where our services come in.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we've had someone, I think I said this already. They came in, they're like, I don't need to do anything. Like it's a research heavy podcast. They're like, I research and I show up and that's it.
Right.
Like I don't need to do anything else.
Yep.
And that is like, that goes back to something we talked about last week too. It's like, you should maybe like, if you can do it, great. We support you in your creative endeavors if you're a DIY person. But like, if you're like, those 4 hours are too much, I know I want to do a podcast. If I could cut it down to 1 or the 90 minutes in your case, if I could remove over half of my workload just to release the podcast, that's what we do.
Yep. Makes it easy.
But then, so even if you zoom out more though, now we get into like the modern podcasting, modern promoting. Now you're cutting clips, and that's how you said before we were talking about it, gets you can do like 20 minutes. Your process is about 20 minutes.
Yeah. And
my process is like 90 minutes.
Yeah. So that's okay. This is one of those things, like, I'm continually moving the boundary of what I will do weekly for my podcast. But every one of those steps, I am full in like, what is the fastest, easiest way to do this that I can do this and I don't hate every moment of it.
Let me tell you. Pay for it.
Pay for it, yeah.
It's literally like, oh, you Venmo, okay, done. I mean, that is in theory, like that is, again, we talked about it, like the time money trade-off.
Yes.
Which is like, hey, everyone like, I'm not here to tell people that don't have $25, like that. If it goes to something better, do it. Or you have the time, do it. But like, if you can, why not?
Yeah. Like, outsource it if you can. Also, just for me, it was like, okay, the clip started as like, I gotta one, you always have to find the clip, which timestamps would take care of, which I need to do.
That would actually, the biggest, even if you're doing like manual cleaning, you're like scrubbing to remember like, oh, I needed to take something out. That takes forever. Yeah. That like, imagine it's 40 minutes in, like literally what we just did. And this is not like, this seems like really cool. Like we figured it out now.
Yeah.
Like we did that on purpose.
This is a journal of our failures.
But it's literally like, it can double your editing time just looking for something.
Yeah. So I had a small hiccup on my other podcast this week where about 35 minutes in, my co-host goes, oh shoot, my laptop isn't plugged in. And so he got up and he walked away to go find his laptop charger. And I made sure, I was like, I'm going to sit here silently, because on the audio feed, there's going to be a moment where we are both totally silent for 7 seconds, and I will be able to find that. And I won't have to spend, where is it? Like re-listen to the whole episode, just get it, mark it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the upside of having a studio engineer too.
Yeah.
Like
also bleeping phone numbers or like personal information that people accidentally share.
Yeah. I try to, like, if someone comes in and is like, oh, we need a clip, we need to cut that. I'll take a little sticky note and I'll write the time and then I'll send it. Cause we don't cut that. Cause I'm like, I don't know exactly what's in and out for you, but like, I'll be like, hey, this is the time you said. Cause usually the people that are like, oh, I know I need a clip, that have some semblance of audio editing, we can do it for people, but it's just one of those like, that's not something we do standard right now.
Our podcasts are very in the format of like fire and forget. Like we were going to shoot this whole thing one shot, record the podcast one shot. We're not going back and chopping and mixing and stuff. We're like, except for like clips, but it's like when I listen to podcasts like the one you sent me the other day we were talking about, this dude is interviewing people, but what he's doing is he's having a clip from the person he's interviewing, and then he's narrating a point he's trying to make, and then another clip from the guest. So you're not actually hearing a live interview. You're just hearing clips chopped together. I'm like, this is how you turn an audio podcast into like 40 hours of work every week.
Yeah. I mean, that's the public radio type style, the non-live public radio type style.
Yeah.
But it is like, so now you're at the 4 hour mark now. Oh shoot, like every 4 episodes you're like, I gotta cut that thing.
Yeah,
now you need to search for it, and it's like, that is why most podcasts do not, that would be my guess. My guess would be twofold. They look at their listener numbers and they go, I am not getting enough people, and then they go, that's like a hit to their ego. And then they go, oh, I'm spending 5-6 hours on this and I'm not getting any return, and I do not like my life anymore.
Yeah.
Or I do not like this facet of my life anymore.
And I think it's only going to hurt you if you let it hurt you, or if you're in it for the wrong reason. I think mental health. One, mental health is very important. Two, don't start an insanely massive project without knowing you have the endurance for it and you have the expectations set. You don't know how any of this is going to go. At the end of the day, it's like you can spend tons of time researching for a podcast, have guests on, have it be like really chopped and edited and super clean, and you can release it and you can get nothing. You never know. Like it all comes down to like, if you want more people in, you have to push harder. And also, I don't know. That's why I'm like, draw boundaries for yourself and like, okay, I'm going to make this type of promotional material for my podcast every week, but I'm not going to overdo it. I'm going to do what I'm comfortable with, what I can start with, what I can repeat, and then I will grow and expand. But I am so like, everything I planned is how do I avoid burnout? You know, in every like aspect of this, I'm like, how can we go through this to get good quality and avoid burnout?
See, I'm a burnout person.
You're a burnout. Yeah. You get no vitamin
king.
D.
Let's be real. There's short kings out there. I'm a burnout king. But this time with this project, the studio, I actually have a plan, believe it or not.
Right.
Where it's like, I'm going to take my own advice of like eventually offloading the work, finding someone else to do it, and then look at it, because the studio is a business for us. It's like, all right, how do I reinvest in my business? Mm-hmm. And I really I talk about it all the time. It's just like an uphill battle with creatives. And it's like, I don't know all of it. But with creatives, it's a race to the bottom. Where I'll let me find the fastest way to do it and the cheapest way to do it, but I don't want anyone else to do it. Like I want, it is like, if, I don't know, let me just use the example. If people don't understand what racing to the bottom it means, it's like, hey, everyone's going to get paid $10 to perform stand-up no matter what.
Right.
And then someone goes, well, I want more spots, so I'm going to say $9.
Right.
And then everyone moves to that spot to compete with that person. Then someone says $8, and it keeps going until you're at the point where you're paying $5 for an open mic.
Yep.
It's racing to the bottom. It happens in a lot of other, it's not a stand-up comedy thing. It happens in a lot of spaces.
Yep.
But if you're like, your target audience is looking, are people that are used to racing towards the bottom, you have to then convince them that their time is more valuable than their money.
Yeah.
And I don't think that should be that difficult of a conversation.
Yeah.
Like it is, but it really shouldn't be, because at the end of the day, like, I want to avoid burnout because I want to enjoy my life. Like, I also need to have a healthier relationship with money to be like, I'm going to get this back. I can like find ways to scrape and get by. I don't need to imagine every second that I'm going to run out of money and perish from my own creative endeavors.
Yeah. I feel that. Yeah. Those things, like the avoiding burnout and like the time being more valuable than money thing is like no joke. And it's like, especially in something like this, because in a year, let's say you have a 1 hour podcast. In 1 year, you're spending a minimum of 52 hours just recording that.
So times that by 4, you're looking at 208 hours.
Yeah. Like that's insane. That's like what, 5 weeks, like a 5-week 9 to 5, like spending all that time doing all that work. So any of that like you can take off your shoulders, be like, whether it be, I'm going to pay someone to make a clip, I'm going to pay someone to clean my audio, I'm going to pay someone to like upload it, just whatever. It is worth it. Like you get to pick what is worth it too.
Yeah.
But there are people who start podcasting and you'll see them on the podcasting subreddit and people will be like, podcasting is a full-time job. And I appreciate the sentiment, but it doesn't have to be. Like, there are like, maybe we're going to get there where one of our podcasts hits full-time job status. But for the most part, it's like the more you learn, the quicker you get and the better you come to an understanding that it's like, here's the quality I want to reach. Here's how much time I want to invest. Here's how much money I want to invest. You kind of triangulate those things into a perfect like middle point.
And that's this podcast that we've been referencing. The guy who does it also has a masterclass. and or not a master class, like an accelerator program. And he had one of those like Instagram videos that's like, watch this video to learn more, like all the tricks. And I did, because I'm like, screw it. Like, I'm trying to learn as much as I can. It's free. So I listened, and he was of the mind that a podcast should be a full-time job. Like, if you want to make money, you got to treat it like a full-time job. And yes, to some degrees, but he also realized, like, wait, his job in terms of making money was actually offloading all that other work.
Right.
It was his job was interviewing people, and then finding ways to make money and promote the show, which is like going to cool events and stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, it encapsulates who you are, but he was not like 9 to 5 scripting, editing, like all the technical stuff. So even that stuff is like, yeah, it can consume your life if you have a really good show, but if there's something that you're proud of that you're creating, it's probably going to consume your life anyway.
Yeah.
But I also am like, I'm kind of hoping I hate negative comments in general, but I hope that we make a big enough impact where someone's like, oh, his points are all really salesy for the studio and all of that, which would be sick. No, it actually crushed my soul. I'm very fragile that way. But also, like, literally, if you feel that way, come talk to me. And this is literally what I spew out of my mouth
all the time,
so often.
Yeah, it's almost like a relief that you're not doing curbside anymore.
Oh God, don't worry. That's
talk about
back.
that all the time. Yeah.
Oh, it's coming back.
But yeah, like we say up top, it's like we're not experts. We are where we are, which I'd say we are probably intermediate podcasters.
We can get your show off the ground.
We can definitely get your show off the ground. We can definitely make the audio and video sound good and look good, and we can guide you through the beginning processes. But like, this show is literally like us on our journey to figuring out the other side. Like, how do we make this work, you know? And it takes time. And things I've learned, there's things, I feel like this show is going to be a reflection on things we've learned not to do and things that don't work.
This is
primarily.
Like, I know why we have the name of the show, but it literally, the tagline should be fail faster with Maxim and Connor. Because we talked about in the first episode, like, you can, like, if you get a group of friends together, they're all trying to achieve the same thing. You share your stories of failure, and then you go, okay, I'm not going to do that. You can fail with 5 friends in 1 year. You can fail the equivalent of 5 years. You listen to this show, you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to do what those idiots did. And you don't even need to do it. All you need to do is listen.
Yep.
Literally take some time to be like, all right, if you're serious about, like, I don't know, I think I've been working on the website a lot, getting the copy together. And the question of like, who is coming in here and what are their intentions? We do want the space to be a resource, an accessible resource for comedians and creatives. But the other side question is like, what is the outcome on the other side? So like, that is the piece you really need to value. You need to figure out for yourself of like, all right, what are our goals? And like, what pieces fit into it to get us there? Exactly.
And I think also like managing, like, it also falls into managing expectations. Is like, when I think about my, like, don't quit your day job, my expectation is I want to interview cool people and I want to have a fun podcast with them. And if the podcast blows up or it doesn't, I'm fine. That's my expectation. That's my goal. It's just to make sure the podcast is good and enjoyable to listen to. So everything above that feels like a bonus. I'm not going to like burn out on it and be like, oh man, I'm not like, it's not blowing up like I'd hope. Like later I can have the goals like, oh, I want to bring in this many new listeners per week, or I want to bring in like this much money or whatever. But like those things, they take time. They'll figure it out.
They do. And I'm getting big into manifesting. It's an inside reference for only David Dobbins, who I'm sure will never listen to this podcast. He will. I hope he does and hears that. But Joey Marble's a guy. He's a big manifesting guy. And he like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure out how people can grow their shows. Like, what else am I doing with my life?
Yeah. I mean, I had a breakthrough this week just putting my clips on YouTube Shorts. I was like, you mean to tell me I could just have thousands of people watching a video from my channel? And it doesn't even have to be one of the main ones, but I'm like, all I had to do was spend 20 minutes making a clip and then posting it. like clips I've already taken. Like
the fact that someone a number of people have done it means it is possible.
Yeah.
So you just got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. And also the continually shifting landscape. I think once TikTok blew up, it kind of, now we're in like a different era of podcast advertisement where you got to have clips. You got to have stuff. You're going to have to brave the storm and get on TikTok at some point and figure out how to do that. YouTube Reels and our YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, also good, but like nothing has like the power like TikTok does for drawing people to your show. And I think that's true. I don't know, like maybe it doesn't have the draw power. Maybe it's better if you get written up in like an online publication or something like that, or shouted out on some other person's big podcast. But
I got an idea.
You got an idea? What's your idea?
You pay someone to make the clips for you because that's a time suck. And then you go out and meet people who do those types of publications. That's something I like this to do.
Man on the street interviews.
Well, the thing is, like, now you're doing both things.
Right.
You don't need to pick and choose if you have your time back.
Right.
I would like to make some connections. We're actually going to an event tomorrow night.
Yeah.
A socializing event. And I'm going to one Sunday, like, for podcasting people.
Yeah. I'm very excited to see what that's going to be about. And I'm really excited to get drunk with strangers. But who knows? That could be something we talk about in the next episode. We come back from those events and here we're like, here's what we gathered.
That's a good idea.
Timestamp. So that should be at like 30 minutes in, 25.
See, that's the thing. We have a clock in the studio, which has actually been so helpful for our business. That is like,
oh yeah,
I'm not even kidding. There's been times I'm like, oh, they're going to run long. And then they will verbally say, oh, we got this much time left. Cause I'll look at the clock and I'm like, oh, I don't need to do anything anymore.
Yeah. For listeners, what we used to do, this is an easy lessons learned. Is like, we used to be like, okay, so you guys have a 1 hour slot. So you're going to go until 6:55 or whatever. You can hit a stopwatch on your phone, but I'll come out from behind the curtain and I'll give you like a comedian, like 10-minute light.
You have to look at that. It's just real awkward.
Yeah.
But yeah, the story goes.
Yeah. So we get the clock. Now people can check. We can go, look, we got a clock. You can go until this time. And they just know,
and people are respectful too.
So that was a good one. We should have a big bright light like Eastville Comedy Club where they give you the 1 minute. It's the big red hand that glows the whole room.
Just ruin your shot.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to an event. You're going to two events.
Yeah. And I did ask our graphic designer too, because I have the 2 tickets, because I know you're stepping up and manning the studio here if he wants to go. I'm not sure, but I'd like to I don't know. I think it's cool to bring in people that are interested in our world into it. I think for me, we've talked about it, like managing expectations is like, you kind of fall, like everything we've talked about up until this point has fallen back into those main things of like manage expectations, pay people for their work.
Yeah.
It's really just managing expectations is probably the biggest thing.
It's so big.
But that's probably for life too. But I think the other piece though is like, I think the idea of this is going to sound like not what I want it to sound like, but comedians, creatives, artists really embracing the business side of what they do, even though that sounds super corporate.
Yeah.
That sounds like the antithesis of art. But embracing that and creating a movement around it, like, is super important. That's just the reality of the world we live in, and whether you like it or not. I don't know if I actually like it. There's some ways I'm like, yeah, that means I can go do. I don't need to get into it. That's a whole different rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But it's a reality that you need to embrace the business. But like, if we talked about racing to the bottom, if that's what we're fighting against, we need more people to believe in the studio, to be like, it's worthwhile because, I see something on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And so if you meet people, you go to events, you can talk to them. Like, I don't know if I told you this. I was hanging out with a friend, who a friend of a friend had a podcast, and they have signed a contract. They're a client here now.
Boom.
But it's like getting people, like having those conversations. So I'm excited to like continue to spread the word.
Yeah. And I think also along the lines of, a log of failures. I'm excited to meet other people who are doing hopefully similar stuff. Like, it would be cool to meet like podcasters who do it at home and have a big following, or podcasters who use a studio, or people who own a studio or are part of a network. Like, I'm excited to see, like, for me, it feels like what we're doing with podcasting, this is like us moving from being like just open micers to like people be like members of like a community, being booked and like being regulars, you know? It's kind of, so I'm excited to bridge that gap. I'm excited to see what's up. I'm excited for the people to be like, oh, how many episodes you got? I'd be like, 110. They'll be, how many listeners you got? I'd be like,
he doesn't want to share.
Don't ask. I'm working on it, okay? Where are you? What other podcast has all the famous comedians of 5 to 10 years from now on it?
Well,
this one.
There's something about, like, there's still like an underground Brooklyn scene for comedy. It's not, I don't know, like underground music and stuff. That's a whole different world. Like, we're still very public facing and very accessible. We're only underground because people haven't found us yet.
Yeah.
But that is, it's still like, I don't know, a lot of things start that way.
Yeah.
So we're just at the beginning, but it's really like for the studio, getting people to believe in like, it's worth paying. It's worth growing. Like, I just think so much of what anyone does is having people also share that idea.
Yeah. And I mean, we had a couple people who said they compared prices from other studios and they're like, yours is the best price. And they like us. Actually, this is part of our.
Yeah, we got about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay. So I guess we can
we use the clock.
We can do highlights.
We can, surely. Yeah.
Okay.
We need to finish.
So highlights, we didn't talk about this more, but we had a get together or a local brewery.
Oh, that was fun.
With some of the podcast hosts and people who've used the studio. It was a great time. And one of the hosts, Samantha Prosser, who hosts the Tony Awards with Jake Everhart.
Good show.
Great show. Go listen. It's great. TONI Awards.
Yeah.
But she said they used to record at a comedy club's recording studio.
Yeah.
And they didn't like it because it felt too businessy and corporate and everything was just money. There's no personal touch. And they were recording with a close friend of theirs who was basically engineering their show for free.
I met this person. They're a great person.
And she was like, oh yeah, we love like doing it. They were great to hang out with, but we feel so bad because they're doing it for free. And they're like, oh, but your studio is like the perfect blend of both. It's like, you guys are cool and friendly and we can pay you for the work. And it's all just a nice, neat little package where there's no guilt, you know? Which
was really cool for me to hear, circling back to the whole like pay people to do things.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a,
so that was definitely a highlight, is hearing that. It's like, oh, we're setting up a business that people like to come to.
That's so important.
We're not a dentist's office of a recording studio.
We're not a necessity. No.
Yeah, we're not something where it's like you come in here and there's no one here to help you and you sit down for your time and then the mics shut off when you're like at your paid time or whatever.
I have heard that is like some studios at our price point do that.
Yeah.
Like you have to get in remotely and all of that. Like, hey, and I get it. That's a business though. Like we need to understand those lines, but we also have the luxury that we don't need to do that now and hopefully never will. Cause like for me, I'd much rather keep, like every client we have right now is been pretty great.
Yeah.
They've been, like they're really respectful. And like, as soon as we put up the clock, they're like, yep, okay, I know.
Yep.
It's been really good. For my highlight this week, we had a number of podcasts are like starting to figure things out in terms of like what they want stylistically. And for me, I really take pride in like the podcasts we put out there. I think that goes back to client relations and everything, but also I'm just like, I don't want my name associated with something bad.
And nothing in the studio has been bad.
No. And I also would never be like, I think every podcast can grow and still get better. And I think every podcast is in here is hungry to figure some piece of that out.
Yeah.
Whether it's personal growth, show growth. But the, a lot of people are like, I like want like a more natural roll in to it. I'm like, that's sweet. Cause I kind of like the natural, like hang out, not a buddy podcast, but like the vibe of that. Like it's a little bit more artistic of like capturing these moments of the people that encompass the space. Cause I still think podcasting is fly on the wall. Like you're seeing someone, you're getting to observe this conversation. And so I was doing that, and I've captured like 3 or 4 people reacting to the studio in a super positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, sweet. It's so good to hear. I think I've said that it's like been my highlight every week.
Yeah.
But this one was really cool where someone specifically said like, yeah, this space makes me take being on your podcast more seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, being here means like I need to like try.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was really cool. I didn't even think about that
Mhm.
and step into in terms of stepping into a space, but it was like super candid.
Yeah.
Super like, it was one of those things like, yeah, they're like, yeah, we kind of just want you to roll into it. I'm like, I captured that.
Yeah.
That was a sweet moment. We'll probably maybe turn it into something at some point.
It's going to be a clip for us.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about too is I'm really excited because we have shows that are starting to launch now. And so it's kind of great seeing like all these little baby shows grow up and like, oh, they're going to start putting stuff out. I'm excited for people to start seeing this studio in clips all the time and being like, what is this place? All these different TikTok or YouTube or podcast clips, whatever, are all at the same place. What is this? And one day we'll have a sign so they know.
They're very close.
Very close. But like, I can't wait for that because I'm thinking about like when you see a comedy club you've never been to and you see like clips of comedians at this club, every once in a while you're like, I've seen that stage before. Who else is there? And you kind of like, okay, so where is this club? Like it kind of draws you in. Like you see these great comedians in this environment. You're like, which one is that? You know? And it's like, oh, it's some club in like South Carolina. Who knows? Whatever. Yeah. Same thing for the studio is like people are going to be seeing the studio and they'll be like, hey, nice table. And where is this? What is this? And hopefully there's like kind of a rewind for people to come find us through all these podcasts we're making.
And I'll be very candid with it. Like a part of our strategy is like, we want our podcast to care about this space enough that like they tag and they promote, and then we do the exact same thing. We are helping support them. So that way, you know, they feel like, hey, I love this space. This is where I want to be. And then we're in that comment there.
Yeah.
But that only comes by creating a space where people feel like they really appreciate.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. Like you gotta, the client relations is so important. And then also helping them.
Yeah.
Manage their expectations, figure out the workload, and be like, hey, your podcast is going to launch. You're going to get not a lot of views because you don't have a great, it's like we're there to hold hands along the way.
Yeah. It's almost like, I don't like, it would be terrible for it to be our slogan, but manage your expectations is like.
So we have 2
so
slogans
important.
now. Manage your expectations and fail with us.
Fail with us, manage your expectations. People are like, whoa, what am I paying for? Now, I'm hoping that like, you know, I hope that one day we keep doing this show and I hope we can look back and like be further along and look back and be like, wow, we actually figured that stuff out. You know, I'm hoping that we can make that.
I manifested it. Joey Marbles.
Joey Marbles. I don't know who that is. I'll put it on my vision board. I have
just put on your vision board Joey Marbles.
Okay. I have on my vision board, I have 10,000 podcast listens and 1,000 subscribers. We'll get there. But slowly. I did say I did have a successful studio is written on the vision board as well. And that has been written there since February. So,
yeah,
been a while.
I think we're there. I'd say we have achieved. The guest that came in too is talking about like, he talks a lot about like mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Like the same guest that gave a great studio review. It's just like mindsets. Like, you know, you can either after you get off the stage and someone says great set to you, you can either be like, oh, I had a shitty set, or like, hey, maybe there was something that they actually liked, and like just taking everything that is positive and not souring it, because life can be sour enough. So we have achieved some level of success.
Yeah, and I'm trying. I don't think there's anything that I'm sour about thus far. Just regular old learning experiences.
I like learning.
Yeah.
Do I?
We're gonna learn. We're gonna get more plants, more lamps, more accent lighting. We're gonna get a sign.
Oh, we forgot our plants today.
Oh yeah, we did.
Detail. Well, thank you, Danielle DeLudy and
female intern
for our salt lamp.
This has been a wonderful little fixture on the shelf. I love it.
We'll get there with time. But
I'm also looking forward to whatever the next furniture revision of the space is.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I mean, shout out to our good friend Mo as well. Literally gave us these chairs, this table, the couch that you'll probably see on a couple podcasts.
These chairs are the only thing stopping most of me and my guests from disappearing into the night of the background.
Yeah, but we'll figure it out. I think there's a lot of positive stuff. And to be honest, this is so next episode we've decided.
We're going to report back.
We're going to report back on these events we went to.
Yep.
And I forgot the other point I was going to make.
I think it was just report back.
It's a report back, but yeah, it wasn't about that. It was about the space in general. I don't know.
Furniture revisions.
Oh, this is it. I remember. So this is like the first time we are publicly going out. Like we've told our friends about this space and everything's kind of been word of mouth, but this is the first time we're going out representing My Friend's Basement in the community.
Don't even have
podcasters.
T-shirts.
We have nothing. We've talked about business cards. I heard about with our graphic designer. But this is like the first time. So we've achieved this level of success without any public facing besides an Instagram that like really passively promoting. Like the real promotion hasn't started. So it's like we're just,
and we haven't even started shaking hands and kissing babies.
Hey,
like
I offered this studio space. I just found out they're not going to use it to a professor at the Columbia Journalism School. They were looking for a place on a listserv. There are people like that out there. And we're really just within our network now. So
yeah, we're kind of in the I once had someone come to my college and he was from an electrical engineering company. He gave like a talk to us engineering students. He's like, a business is like this pie, right? And he's like, there are things you know, and there are things you know that you don't know. And those are things you're going to learn. But then there's the thing that gets you is the things you don't know that you don't know. Mm-hmm. And this process, I think I'm really excited for tomorrow's event just because I know there's lots of stuff like that.
So much.
And there's so much of that. It's only a matter of time before we stumble across another thing that just like changes our perspective. Like it was like when our friend Lucas Arnold showed us the software to speed up our editing process, get rid of the mouth noises, get rid of the clicks, deep breath. Game changer.
Talk about time management. That literally added 4x on our time.
Yeah. Commitment. It makes it so quick. And I'm like, we're going to have other breakthroughs like that. And it could happen at any moment from any person. And it might not even be technical. It might just be like a business thing or like, why didn't we think of that? So I'm excited to hopefully encounter some of that.
Yeah. And remember too, all these people have failed through audio too. Now they just failed more. So we might be the least failures there.
Yeah, we just go up to people and they're like, "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Maxim, My Friend's Basement Studio. Manage your expectations."
How long have you been in it? Oh, you've been failing for 15 years longer than me. That's so sad.
Trust me, my show's been sucking for 110 episodes.
Okay. All right, people.
Well, thank you guys for listening. Connor, where can the people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at My Friend's Basement Studio.
Nice.
That's the studio's one. I check the emails every day for My Friend's Basement Studio at gmail.com. Mm-hmm. And then my personal Instagram is Connor Kwiecien.
Link in the description. Yeah. And guys, you can follow me on Instagram at asparaguts. It's like asparagus with guts at the end. I realized the other day when I was plugging at the end of a show, it's like the link in my bio has my link to everything else. So all of my podcasts, all of my videos, just go to my Instagram, click the link in bio thing, and then you can get all of it. You can find all of it. You can find my Twitter. You can find my hella podcasts.
This is one side note too. So Apple, we talked about iTunes. Process was horrible initially. Yeah. They also make you authenticate every time you log in. So if you mess something up, you got to log in again.
Yep.
You know how they're big into iMessages? Mm-hmm. You're an Android person.
Yeah.
Apple, man, there's terrible service for my phone. That's basically, they only send 2FAs, two-factor authentication, SMS.
What? They only send 2?
No, the 2FA, like the number.
Oh, okay.
Through SMS texts.
Yeah.
Why? Their whole thing is iMessages. That's it. Like, that's their whole, like, yeah, everyone needs to use this except for us when we text you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my point.
I'm mad at them all the time, and I hate them. It's okay. My podcast is on there, so go give a 5-star review to The Watch from Mercury and tune in every week for new episodes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.